I am very heartbroken. Very heartbroken. I read in the Gleaner yesterday about a 13-year-old girl. The headline, 13-year-old girl buggered by 5 persons in St. Anne. And the story continued. 4 of 5 suspects have been taken into custody by the police in St. Anne in relation to a case of buggery involving a young girl. And they spoke to the head of the St. Anne Police, Senior Superintendent Dwight Powell. Now, I am heartbroken about this, and I'll have a conversation about it later on in the program. But I have not been able to sleep since I read that. I mean, this thing is haunting me. A 13-year-old girl, and the allegations, buggered by 5 persons in St. Anne. The depravity, the cruelty, the cold-heartedness, the place that came from. How much more can we take as a nation? How much more can we absorb as a nation? How much more? What is it going to take to make a change? What is it going to take to break the neck of this criminality, this wickedness, this cruelty, this cold-heartedness here in Jamaica? What is it going to take? And the answer must lie in each and every single one of us, individually and therefore collectively. My heart cries, my blood cries, my body cries. I cannot begin to even figure this one out. And it has happened before. Like, this is not the first time that we've had this kind of depravity on one of our young babies here in Jamaica in Child Month. I don't know where to go from this, but all I know is that the answer lies in every single one of us individually. And until we can reflect and go within self and ask, how are we contributing to this depravity upon this island? Until we can face that truth, there will be no change at every single level, within the private sector, within the church, within the parliament, within the schoolroom, within the organizations in which we work, in the marketplace, wherever we are, until we can face the truth of how we ourselves are contributing to this level of depravity in this nation, we will see no change, no change. Praying alone is not going to fix this, and the church is turning a divergent gaze because the church gets away with praying. And I declare from this position this morning that the church's attitude to prayer is an escapist route. Because if they are to face their own bigotry and hypocrisy and inaction, they would be ashamed of themselves, so they lose themselves in prayer. But praying without working is foolishness. You've been praying and praying and praying and praying, and your prayers have already been answered. For sure, God is not deaf. Your prayers have already been answered. Go out now and do something. And I hold you, the church, responsible this Sunday morning for a lot of the nastiness that is happening in the country. Let me go now to the private sector. Because you came out boldly just a few weeks ago to say that you have full confidence in the Commissioner of Police. I rebuke you. So So this country is run by friend and company business. This requires some plain speaking, and for the sake of Africa, let us speak plainly. So it is who is friend with who and who is close with who, and you hold each other's hands and you meet around your square tables or your round tables, and you are who you are, sucking the blood of the nation and talking about you have full confidence. The crime rate in Jamaica is worse than it is where there is civil war. And yet you have confidence. So you, the private sector, you are responsible for the rape and buggery of this 13-year-old girl in St. Anne. You are responsible. I won't even bother to talk about the parliament. You who are coddling and cushioning a supposedly and allegedly abuser, violent abuser of women. You who will not face the truth of that situation and then expect us to believe you when you talk. You are not what you say you are. You are what you do. I speak to you, Andrew Holness, and I speak to you, every single one of you in Parliament. I hold you, wife of the Prime Minister and wife of the Governor General, responsible for the rape and buggery of this 13-year-old girl in St. Anne, because you too are part of the problem. This requires some plain speaking, and for the sake of Africa, for the sake of our daughters, for the sake of our 13-year-olds, let us speak plainly. And what about you? What about you? You hold no position. You hold no position. You're going out about your business on a day. You don't care. You too are responsible, because you feel that there is so much coming at you already, and you are the poor, and you are the down-pressed, and you can't find money to do so and so, and you can hardly find food. What about you? What about you? It is your daughter next. It is your daughter next. You are responsible. I'm talking about you, every so-called everyday Jamaican. You are responsible for the buggery of this 13-year-old girl by 5 persons, and for every other thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? We must hold ourselves responsible, because this is happening on our watch. And what have we done? What have we done? What have we done? Apart from talking. What have we done? If after this, we do not come to ourselves in our communities, in our home, in our spaces, and hold those who are responsible to institute changes to protect our daughters, our 13-year-old daughters, then we continue to be responsible for everything else that happens. We must, people power is strong power, but we've got to come together to do this. We must agree at least on this one thing, that Jamaica cannot remain in the throes of and controlled by criminal and an element of criminality that have now turned itself on our 13-year-old daughters. We must agree on this one thing, and we must hold ourselves responsible, and we must do something. Do something. Do something. What have we done? What have we done? So how do we begin to hold the authorities and those who are entrusted to protect us and to protect our 13-year-old daughters responsible? How do we begin to hold them responsible? Yes, we must march on all their offices. Yes, we must sit down and don't move until the change is made. Yes, we must demand justice. Yes, we must demand swift justice. because justice delayed is justice denied, and that's part of the problem in Jamaica. It continues to happen that way because it suits the system. So we must hold them responsible. And it's not just about voting them out, you know. We're going to have to do more than that. And until we have done more than that, we're going to have to find our own Tiananmen Square. We have got to find our own ways of doing things. We're going to have to stand and do until there is a change. You know, this demands it's a complex situation in Jamaica, crime and violence, and they're going to tell you about the multi-agency approach, and they're going to continue to talk about the multi-agency approach. I can tell you, I used to do a program here on Tuesday nights in the early 1990s all the way to the 2000s called Sex Wise, and we had these things coming up every year or every 2 years. You had one of this coming up, a 13-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. And we'd have the conversations, long conversation, 4 hours at a time, 3 hours at a time, about what to do. And they come with their academic speak. We're going to have a multi-agency approach. They have been saying that from 1990, from my experience. And I'm sure there are others who can tell you they've been saying that way before that. It's a multi-agency approach. And they have all kinds of buzzwords and slogans to use. But we can't take your slogans no more. It is time for change. We demand change. We're also being part of a change we want to see. So let's do this. Let's do this. Last time we marched against crime and violence against women in Jamaica, they hijacked the march. The politicians hijacked the march and they led from the front. And the news covered what they were saying and not what we were feeling.